Hi, I'm Tim. Welcome to our channel and thanks for logging on. If you enjoy these videos, do me a favor and subscribe to our YouTube channel right here at Watchbox Reviews. I'd really appreciate it and I promise to update daily. If you like this watch, I don't blame you, and you can see it and purchase it on our website, thewatchbox.com. Buy, trade, and sell luxury watches on thewatchbox.com. Today we are discussing one of the IT watches from 2017 to the present. The launch of this watch, almost like a supernova at SIHH 17. Audemars Piguet's Royal Oak Extra Thin 15202BA, the jumbo in yellow gold. Yellow gold made a big comeback at AP in 2016, and for 2017, the brand's signature model in its most elemental form, rendered in the most traditional of golds, and it is a stunner. Let's talk about the fit first, because I have to emphasize it fits like a Royal Oak 15202, which is to say it's very thin, but it's broad. So 39 millimeters from 9 to 3 across the case, not including the crown. It is very slim. AP claims 8 millimeters. Plus 1/10, and I have to say AP underrates this watch as it is exactly 8 millimeters. This is a slim and beautiful broad-shouldered timepiece. Now, though 39 and 8 millimeters thick, it does have a large stance, 48.8 millimeters from lug to lug, and if you count the intermediate links outboard, you're going to find that it's 51.8 millimeters across the wrist, which is to say I wouldn't wear this watch on a wrist smaller than 14 centimeters circumference. You really need to think of it as a 42 millimeter round watch and then plan accordingly. That said, everything touching the wrist is of the highest quality. Sure, there are more valuable traditional jumbos, but I have to say that never have they been more substantial or better built than today. The bracelet on this piece is finished exactly as you would imagine a Royal Oak. Let's get a little bit closer, give ourselves some more light. The beveling, the polishing, the satin finish, the alignment of the grain across links, the alignment of the bevels longitudinally down the links, the satin finish on the flank, which is vertical, you'll note, all of it is immaculate. Easier to see the taper than feel it. You can't actually feel the individual steps as this tapers and necks down. That's how good the tolerances are on the underside. It is a sports watch in some senses in that you have large gaps between links to aerate the wrist on a hot day. That channeling also helps to avoid pinching skin or pulling hair. Removable links fixed by screws, what I always love to see, paddock on luxury sports watches. The clasp is where the latest jumbos really set themselves apart, as the clasp feels sturdy enough to have been used on an offshore, and that is not something you can say of the clasps on most ultra-thin watches. There's also a gorgeous double finish, as you can see elements of both satin and media blasting with polished triggers outboard. It does close sequentially, one side and then the other, with the AP logo being the signature partition point. Moving back to the case, you can see that it's effectively finished like the bracelet, so you have that hairline bevel that flares from the mid-case and expands generously across the downturned tuck, the invert ducktail of the Royal Oak case flank. Of course, the satin finish on the top, immaculate, as well as on the flanks. Push-down crown on this one, and you'll note the screws are used to fix the bracelet in place, not spring bars. This is the way it should be done. It's the upscale way. It's the only way. AP has always been ahead of the game in terms of how it fixes the bracelets to the Royal Oaks and the offshores. You'll note that the bezel gasket is very faintly visible underneath the bezel. It's always been a black hairline slash, a character line, more than a structural feature, whereas on the offshore, it is expressly manifest and a structural part of the watch and a part of the design that's almost on par with the bezel. Here it's just an accent. You'll also note that the polished and rounded flanks of the octagonal bezel, perfect. The seam between the polished flank and the satin top, absolutely immaculate. Again, this watch came out in 2017, so all examples on the market are pretty fresh, but this one is a stunner. The timepiece featuring the characteristic hexagonal bezel bolts of high polish, all white gold, and you'll note quite well recessed into the bezel. This watch has never been refinished. The timepiece featuring a sensational tapisserie or hobnail dial, and I need to emphasize that since 2012 this has been made in-house by AP, but it's still made the traditional way, using a pantograph, effectively a mechanical mimic that takes an oversized template and then etches all of the details of the template onto the actual dial. Blue galvanized. I should also note that this is not the blue that you'll get, for example, on the steel or the rose gold. It is a lighter shade of blue, and you can tell that because the Traditional blue actually matches the date disc used on this watch. So if you get the rose or the steel, the date disc will perfectly match the almost navy blue of the dial. This is almost more of a cobalt blue, and you can see the contrast between the cobalt blue standard date disc and this BA yellow gold specific lighter blue hobnail dial. Beautiful interstitial textures. If you look at this one underneath a loop, you'll find that the hobnails are apparent, but there's a much finer pebbly texture that runs over the hobnails and between the channels. It's the rare dial that deserves a loop. Post 2012, you have the signature, the AP at 6 o'clock, as well as the absence of outboard Arabic numerals, outboard of each of the applied gold indices. You will note the watch is loomed, and there will be a loom shot at the end of the video. The timepiece, robustly constructed for a jumbo, but traditionally constructed inside, as it continues to use the Audemars Piguet manufactured and once upon a time Jaeger-LeCoultre designed caliber 2121. That was born in 1967. We'll see if we can get a little bit closer even, as the Jaeger-LeCoultre caliber 920, developed for Audemars Piguet, Patek Philippe, and Vacheron. It saw duty in the original 3700 reference Nautilus, the Vacheron 222, and it continues in use by Vacheron and AP to this day. Automatic winding with a 40-hour power reserve. You'll note that there's a ring that runs underneath the rotor itself, but also opposite the rotor. That's because the winding rotor is annular. It's a circle. One side of it is engraved and hand finished, and the opposite side helps to maintain its clearance between the bridges and the plates. And what happens is there are actually 4 rollers outboard at 4 corners. They're ruby rollers among the 36 jewels in this movement, and that ring sits on those 4 rollers and it spins around in the same plane as the bridges themselves. Therefore, you're able to create a very thin watch without worrying about the rotor itself crashing into the base plate or the bridges. It's supported on all sides by the annular ring and the 4 rollers. 19,800 vibrations per hour. You can see that Gyromax style free-sprung balance bouncing away. It is a gorgeous movement that is finished to a much higher standard than what you'll find on the 15400 or 15450's 3120. Mechanically, the newer movement is perhaps superior, but in terms of beauty, this one is unchallenged, with true hand finish and a peerless heritage across all of the big 3 of Swiss high horology. Protected to 50 meters of water resistance via a push-down crown. I don't necessarily consider this a swimmable watch, but Audemars Piguet has mentioned in the past that 50 is sufficient for aquatic activity. I prefer to enjoy this one high and dry. No matter how you plan to enjoy it, you can start your journey and make it your own on the watch box. And we're back with the Audemars Piguet 15202BA Yellow Gold. Yellow gold with blue dial by day, gloriously green by night. The closest living relative of Gerald Genta's original 1972 Royal Oak, fabulously rendered in yellow gold. See it and make it yours on the watch box.